Welcome to the First Church in Chestnut Hill and to our Sunday, October 4th service. Welcome if it's your first time, welcome if it's your 100th time. Please feel free to share the link that got you to the service or to hit the subscribe button to get alerts about upcoming services. And now, our readings. First, from Psalm 19. The law of the Lord is perfect, reviving the soul. The decrees of the Lord are sure, making wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is clear, enlightening the eyes. The fear of the Lord is pure, enduring forever. The ordinances of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. More to be desired are they than gold, even much fine gold. Sweeter also than honey and drippings of the honeycomb. Moreover, by them is your servant warned. In keeping with them there is great reward. But who can detect their errors? Clear me from hidden faults. Keep back your servant also from the insolent. Do not let them have dominion over me. Then I shall be blameless and innocent of great transgression. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. And now from our reader.
Good morning. Today's reading is from the book of Exodus. It is the second book of Moses, commonly called Exodus. It's also the second book in the Bible. This amazing book tells of the Israelites' bondage and afflictions under the Pharaoh in Egypt, and of their miraculous escape, led by Moses, guided by God. The chapter and verses we hear today are about the 10 Commandments given by God to Moses, who delivered them to the Israelites. They are indeed powerful words and commandments, given in the midst of thunder and lightning and shaking mountain, and even great movies have been made of this passage. Exodus chapter 20, verses 1 through 4, 7 through 9, and 12 through 20. And God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make yourself a graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. Honor your father and mother, that your days may be long in the land which the Lord your God gives you. You shall not kill. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his manservant, or his maidservant, or his ox, or his ass, or anything that is your neighbor's. Now when all the people perceived the thunderings and lightnings and the sound of the trumpet and the mountain shaking, the people were afraid and trembled. And they stood afar off and said to Moses, You speak to us and we will hear, but let not God speak to us lest we die. And Moses said to the people, Do not fear, for God has come to prove you, and that the fear of him may be before your eyes, that you may not sin.
I pray open our eyes and watch us where we go, and help us to be wise in times when we don't know. Let this be our prayer. so we'll be safe. Lead us to a place, guide us with your grace, give us faith so we'll be
Our reading is hopefully familiar, the Ten Commandments. It is often remembered as a list of rules to follow, but notice the fear and trepidation of the people at the foot of the mountain. Thunder and lightning, smoke billowing. Do not let God speak to us or we will die. The relationship between God and the people of Israel has an element of fear of the Lord. The Ten Commandments are just that, commandments from God. Do these things and don't do these other things. And these 10 examples are singled out, but the scriptures are filled with many statutes, many ordinances to be followed. The 10 Commandments are simply one place to start. Which prompts a question in my mind, at least. Forget the other rules for a moment. Do we follow the 10 Commandments? I don't ask because I'm so wonderful, I'm so sinless. I ask because these 10 rules are sometimes hard to follow. The first and the second, those are intertwined. Have no other gods and worship no God before God. Seems easy enough. I only worship one God, check. But do I? Do I only worship God, worship God and let nothing else stand in the way of that devotion? Does anything else creep into its place? Love of money, love of pleasure, love of country at the expense of one's love of God. When presented between a choice between what God expects of us and the habits that we've fallen into, which will we do? Which do I follow? The third commandment, don't take the Lord's name in vain. That means using the name of God in a bad way, using it to curse. Does that one ever come up? I must confess that I have fallen into that. And cursing was a very big concern centuries ago. What does it mean now? Notice it made it into the top 10. The fourth commandment, keep the Sabbath day holy. Do I do that? For me, it's sort of a work day, but do I otherwise refrain from any labor on the Sabbath? Do any of us? Maybe sneak in a little work to get a jump on Monday morning? A project around the house in the backyard? God gave us the commandment to rest. Is that what we do with our Sundays, our Sabbath? Fifth commandment, honor your father and mother. That doesn't mean just be nice to them. That doesn't mean just respect them. It included taking care of them throughout their lives. It meant being obedient to them, except if they asked you to violate another commandment. It meant never disrespecting them. The sixth commandment, thou shalt not kill, sometimes translated as thou shalt not murder. Those aren't the same things. No killing means no killing for any reason. No murdering means no unauthorized killing. Well, who gets to decide which killings are authorized? The seventh commandment, no committing adultery. That has changed a lot over time. In the ancient period, it was more of a rule just for the women. Men could kind of do whatever they wanted as long as the woman involved wasn't married. That left a lot of room for interpretation. And the definitions shift over time. For example, in the time of Jesus, getting remarried after a divorce was considered by Jesus to be adultery. The rules are reinterpreted and they shift again and again. The eighth commandment was not to steal. Pretty simple. Now bear in mind that not stealing included things like don't withhold someone's wages for any reason, don't cheat someone, don't try to take someone's land. Also, remember that charging interest was a sin. The sin of earning money without work. What about now? The ninth commandment is about bearing false witness, meaning lying about what someone else did. It is specifically lying in a very formal way. It's like lying in court. Lying more generally, it's not a problem in this commandment. You have to look to somewhere else in the Bible for that. The 10th commandment has to do with coveting. Coveting another man's wife, another man's property. Yes, only men apparently could covet. Unlike the other commandments, coveting, desiring, is not an exterior act. It is an interior state of mind. Don't be envious. Don't be greedy. Don't be lustful. Don't think like that. Well, the 10 Commandments are considered a cornerstone of Jewish and Christian morality. But how should we interpret them? Do we look back in time to when the commandments were first handed down? Do we use some later date, or do we interpret the commandments in different ways at different times in different places? If these are overarching moral commands, how could they change over time? Doesn't that lead to everything being relative? There's an expression, putting on airs. Someone who puts on airs is draping themselves in authority and they're acting with arrogance. The term air is an expression from French, and in French it can mean either air that we breathe or it can mean the way that we try to look or act. Well, one of the repeated themes in the Bible is a person acting in a way in public that doesn't necessarily translate to the way that they are in private. Jesus once advised that we should not try to pray to get attention, going so far as to say that we should go pray in a closet. I always wondered if they had closets, but that's a tangent. Every few years there seems to be an effort to erect a monument to the 10 Commandments someplace in the country, in some public place, on the walls of a courthouse, on a stone tablet somewhere in a public square. And the efforts generally get struck down for First Amendment religious rights reasons, though there are exceptions. I have generally classified that desire to post the commandments in the same category as praying really loudly in public. The plan often has more to do with the appearances than any sense of the underlying morality. And it also has to do with carving one set of rules in stone without giving any thought to what those rules currently mean to the public or to anyone. As I've said, the 10 Commandments can be hard to follow. And by that I don't mean it's hard to act in a moral way. The 10 Commandments were a set of rules meaningful to the people of Israel because of the world in which they lived. They made sense. Those rules take some translation outside of that time and that world into what they mean for us now. This is not simply because the rules were written down in ancient Hebrew. It's because they were given to ancient Hebrews. How should we use those commandments in our much more modern lives? There are two different ways to look at the moral lessons of the Bible. One is to consider them as a list of rules, things that are written down, things that have to be followed. Another is to understand these lessons as descriptions of the relationships we're supposed to have with one another and with God. How we prefer to understand these lessons as rules or as descriptions may have a lot to do with how we approach the world and how we approach our lives. There was a psychologist named Lawrence Kohlberg. He developed a theory about 6 stages of moral development, the ways that we engage in moral decision-making. The first stage is obviously the most basic. How do I avoid getting punished? If I break a rule, something bad's going to happen. The second stage equates to, well, what's in it for me? What do I get out of this situation? That's a little more about the reward than the punishment. Third stage, well, what are other people doing? My friends, my peers, those who are around me. This is about complying with social norms and avoiding the shame of feeling out of step. The fourth, what are the rules? That's the law and order mentality. It's legalistic. Rules exist, rules must be followed. And the 10 Commandments, they are rules. The fifth level is about the common good. We're all doing this to build a good and just society together. It's a socially conscious way of acting. And then the sixth and the final level of moral development is universal ethics. People have inherent worth and dignity, the golden rule. This is the highest level of thinking according to Kohlberg. But not everyone agreed with that theory. Another psychologist, Carol Gilligan, she criticized Kohlberg because his system generally valued abstract principles, rules, over underlying relationships. And as her theory goes, men tend to like those rules and principles while women tend to focus on the relationships. Well, which should it be? If we have a list of rules, everyone can read them, everyone can follow them. That is assuming everyone can agree upon how we will interpret those rules. Many sports have supposedly clear rules, but then even with slow motion instant replay, it's not always clear what happened in any specific moment. Look at it from different angles and maybe the guy is safe at home plate and maybe he's out. Maybe she committed a foul or maybe that was fair play. There is no simple way of seeing from every single direction, every single perspective. And that is what happens when different people look at applying rules across different events and let alone different centuries. But what about if we focus on the relationships? That is more difficult because relationships change. With my friends, with my family, with a child, with a parent. Well, where are we? How old are we? What's involved? It's a lot messier. What would be the moral example of looking to a relationship rather than specifying it with a commandment? Well, maybe the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That takes some work because how one wants to be treated depends a lot upon the person, the situation, what have you. And the same could be said for the twofold commandment given by Jesus. Love God and love one another. Well, how do you define love? Can it be applied like a rule? How do you weigh love? How do you measure it? You don't. You're always trying to understand what is going on and how to act in every moment. It's not an easy ironclad rule, which is why some people feel more comfortable with a set of rules. Well, which way should we go? Which should we follow? I'm admittedly partial to Jesus' methods. On the one hand, his way is simple, but on the other hand, it takes a lot of work to understand those relationships. The relationships we have, how they might go, how we might go about loving each other. And as I've said before, simple is not the same as easy. If we have rules, though, there is often the need to craft exceptions. Keep the Sabbath day holy, but you can still heal or hurt or help someone who's been hurt. Don't steal, but if someone takes food in order to survive, that's really not considered a sin. I'm not even going to get into the whole adultery question, past or present. Notice that in all of those situations, with the exceptions somehow relate to a relationship. With helping or not harming someone, the commandments are examples of what to do or not do, but they're never intended to be an exhaustive list. If you only followed the 10 Commandments and nothing else in your life, there's a wide range of harm that you could go out in the world and do. Assault and battery, arson, those all seem good if you just stop with the 10 Commandments. These rules are therefore the beginning of a moral conversation. They were never intended to be the end of it. When Jesus simplified the expectations of living a good and moral life in his commandment to love God and to love one another, he was helping us to focus on the ultimate goal of morality, building and improving the relationships that we have with God and with one another. That is what morality boils down to, tending to those relationships, making sure that each of us is aware of the needs of the other and acting to ensure that those needs are met. Those needs will change, ours and theirs. They will change over time, they'll change across circumstances. Those changes may far outstrip our ability to craft rules quickly enough to fit them. Those changes may be so unexpected that we have no idea what rules to use. But if we instead concern ourselves with relationships, with the needs and the well-being of others, what must be done will be more clear to us than how it all needs to be written down. The clarity of a rule can be useful, but the need to tend to our relationships with one another and, very notably with God, will take a bit of work. And that work is more than the words on a page. Amen.
Oh Beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for pilgrim feet who stern impassioned stress, a thoroughfare for freedom beat across the wilderness. America, America, God mend thine every flaw, confirm thy soul in self-control, thy liberty in law. Oh, beautiful for heroes proved in liberating strife, who more than self their country loved, and mercy more than life. America, America, may God thy gold refine, till all success be nobleness, and every gain divine. Oh, beautiful for patriot dream that sees beyond the years, thine alabaster cities gleam, undimmed by human tears. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Amen.
Let's end in prayer. Gracious God, we pray for those in need, for those who are struggling in this difficult time, from illness or injury, from worry or anxiety. May they know healing, and may they find comfort. For those feeling lost or adrift, those in search of assurance or guidance, may they find the warmth of your love and the light of your ways. For those in need of support, in need of a helping hand, may they find respite among your people and an embrace offered in the spirit of hope and charity. For those torn by divisiveness, for those hearts that are heavy and minds that are racing, may they find their way to peace beyond all understanding, and may they be reminded of a love that knows no end. We ask all of this in your holy name. Amen. Our service is ended. May our service to God and to one another never truly end. Be safe, be well, and God bless you all. Goodbye.